There are three basic principles that underlie functions of the system. The rate of blood flow to each tissue of the body is almost always precisely controlled in relation to tissue need. We will discuss it in detail. The cardiac output is controlled mainly by the sum of all the local tissue flows. And third is the arterial pressure is controlled independently, either local blood flow control or cardiac output control. So these three will be discussed in the upcoming slides. The rate of blood flow. First point, the rate of blood flow to each tissue of the body is almost always precisely controlled in relation to the tissue need. When the tissues are active, they need greatly increased supply of nutrients, and there are much more blood flow than when at rest, about 20 to 30 times the resting level. So the tissue, the needs of the tissue is very important. So the blood flow, the rate of blood flow to the tissues depends on the metabolic needs of the tissues, the level of activity of the tissues. So that's why brain is more active, kidneys are more active, liver is more active. So they need major share of blood flow. Yet the heart normally cannot increase its cardiac output more than 4 to 7 times greater than the resting level. Availability of oxygen and other nutrients and the accumulation of carbon dioxide act directly on the local blood vessels, dilating and constricting them to control local blood flow precisely to that level required for the tissue activity. So the availability of oxygen and carbon dioxide can control the dilation and constriction of the blood. When the oxygen is decreased, there is a vasodilation because of increase in carbon dioxide, and if availability of oxygen is more, then there is vasoconstriction. You can study in the upcoming lectures on local control of blood flow, and central nervous system provides additional help controlling tissue blood flow. Autonomic nervous system, sympathetic and parasympathetic, can also control the tissue blood flow. The cardiac output is controlled mainly by the sum of all local tissue flow. When blood flows through a tissue, it immediately returns by way of veins to the heart. So the blood that goes from heart to tissues come back to the heart through veins. The heart responds automatically to this increased inflow of blood by pumping it immediately into the arteries from where it had originally come. So I have told you already that the cardiac output depends on venous return. The higher the venous return, the more the cardiac output. Thus, the heart acts as an automaton responding to the demand of the tissue. So the heart automatically acts accordingly to the demand of the tissue, to the metabolic needs of the tissue. And third point of your basic theory of circulation is the arterial pressure is controlled independently of either local blood flow control or cardiac output control. So the two factors, that is local blood flow control and cardiac output control, the arterial pressure can be independently controlled by both of these processes, and these effects are: the nervous signals play a role by increasing the force of heart pumping. So the sympathetic nervous system activate, and there is more heart pumping. Contracting large venous reservoir to provide more blood flow to the heart. So when there is more venous return due to contraction of a large venous reservoir, then there is more cardiac output, causing generalized constriction of most of arterioles throughout the body, so that more blood accumulates in the large arteries to increase the arterial pressure. So the blood from the heart goes into arteries and then into arterioles. So if the arterioles are constricted, blood cannot goes into the arterioles, it remains in the arteries. So when the blood remains in the arteries, its pressure becomes increased. Due to resistance in the arterioles. Why? Because the arterioles are constricted. So these are the few other mechanisms in which local blood flow control or cardiac output control cannot play their part. These are the other mechanisms by which arterial pressure can be controlled. So thanks.